So yesterday, what happened? Okay, so what happened was that our party of 4, they finally escorted Akras, their newly found orcish friend, all the way back to the rendezvous point, which we later found out was South Marabanda. And there, they were promptly greeted by his underlings, as far as we knew, his fellow comrades in arms. And he was whisked away, and he told us to make ourselves comfortable in one of the many abandoned huts around the village. So we did. We went there and Kaman had a look around. He was unable to detect any magic, but he did find things in a strange state of sort of abandonment where it looked like the owners of these homesteads had left for the morning without the expectation that they would be away for a long time, because there were still things like food that had been set to one side. The sewing kit was there, which is something that you would take along with you on long journeys. Bara promptly pocketed the sewing kit. And as for the 2 females of the party, they went to wash gulgunk off their bodies because there was a well in the village. However, Bara, seeking to go and speak to them in an unobtrusive way while they were having their baths, suddenly
creepy.
with no malicious intent, he detected the scent of the ocean, and he promptly started sprinting towards the ocean. He's now got this new trick where, because he has both light and prestidigitation, so when he casts light on his breastplate and he prestidigitates his homestead signal on it, he now has a sort of back signal that he can
a Bara signal.
A Bara signal that he can flash at the cloud. So that was sufficient to attract the 2 ladies to the ocean, where they all promptly went and had a wash, while the very boring Kaman stayed in the house to try and figure out what was going on. And he was unable to figure out what was going on, but he did detect that in the dungeon that they had previously explored the day before, he had found an ion stone.
Yes.
And ions, it's spelled ion, Einstein. Einstein. And then Einstein. And he activated it and he started spinning around his head, making him look even more bizarre than usual, because he's already a minority sea elf that very few people see in these parts. After that, the party had a long rest, cleansed, if slightly damp, and they were awoken the next morning by Akras, who was very officiously dressed, and they started to suspect that he was not the simple foot soldier that they had thought him to be. And also, they were later met by the emissary that they had sought to rescue, who is called Maktaras, and she was in pristine condition, unhurt. And then she explained to them in a short while that actually what they had understood to be the situation was much, much, much more complicated than what they had thought. TLDR, the kidnapping of the ambassador who had been in talks with the emissary Maktaras, that was completely staged. Essentially, there were a whole bunch of political events that took me a very long time to understand. There are a bunch of nations who signed a treaty, and basically the treaty had been breached by one of the nations, the civilized kingdom, taking over some of the lands of the other nations. And also, a princess had apparently been kidnapped. And TLDR again, the party had been assigned to soothe the fraught political situation by kidnapping the princess Melena back. Melena, as far as we can tell, is a stately hobgoblin, rather young, and she is in...
Sorry to interrupt, it's a hobgoblin, not a hobgoblin.
I said hobgoblin.
Oh, okay.
I did say hobgoblin.
I heard hobgoblin.
Yeah, but I mean, Bara will probably find out hobgoblin.
Yes.
Hot
Is
hobgoblin.
it because of my shirt?
That is a hobgoblin.
But she could have been a hot goblin.
She could have been a hobgoblin. But anyway, we were going to rescue this presumably hobgoblin that was in the
Twilight's End,
which we would take a while to reach from South Marabanda. We would first have to go over the sea and then do a bit of an overland crossing. However, just as we were preparing to do so, now, a little bit of foreshadowing. When he was keeping watch the previous night, Kaman detected a sense of something not right with the sea around South Marabanda. He was unable to place what it was. And in fact, everybody had a great time the day after exploring lighthouses. And again, Ursa was sucked into a magic mirror, but luckily she was brought back by the lighthouse keeper on the other side of the mirror, and actually on the other side of some distant ocean as well, because these mirrors in the lighthouse were a teleportation device, apparently. And anyway, so they decided to go off on their sea voyage, and but then suddenly they received an ambush, or rather an attack from both land and sea, where Akras's troops were almost overrun, and the party of four were told to escort the emissary and the ambassador onto boats that would take them for further shores. Like the party of four knew where they were going, but we don't know where the ambassador and emissary are going. And after fending off the attack with a display of fantastic intelligence and prowess, they are now on the boat. And yes, that's right.